A rich businesswoman approaches a street singer and is surprised to hear the song of her great love from the past. When he opens his eyes, he reunites with the woman he never forgot. You cannot miss the end of this story. Subscribe to the channel and comment which city and country you are watching this video from and join us. The wind blew gently that spring morning, carrying with it the fresh scent of the flowers blooming throughout the park. Sunlight filtered through the treetops, casting delicate shadows on the stone and dirt path. The birds singing intermingled with the distant murmur of the few people walking by, enjoying the tranquility of the scenery. It was in this setting, wrapped in an almost nostalgic harmony, that Victoria stepped back into the city she once called home. The 53-year-old woman, elegant in her posture, walked slowly along the main avenue of the park, allowing herself to absorb every detail of that environment that seemed frozen in time. There was something bittersweet about that feeling. A mix of comfort and strangeness, as if every tree, every path, and every bench whispered memories she didn't know if she was ready to relive. Victoria had built a successful career. For decades, her life revolved around meetings, contracts, and endless travels. Her name was respected in business circles, her presence always associated with strength and determination. But, no matter how undeniable her professional achievements were, there was a gap within her, an empty space that years of dedication to work could not fill. She hadn't been back there in over 30 years. The city that once was her youthful refuge now felt both familiar and distant. The streets, the buildings, the unknown faces, everything seemed to have moved on without her. But that was not what weighed most heavily on her heart. What truly hurt was the memory of what she had left behind when she departed. Victoria had never allowed herself to think too much about it. The past was a chapter she had learned to keep closed. But now, walking those same paths she once traveled hand in hand with someone who had been so important to her, she couldn't help but let the memory haunt her. She inhaled deeply, feeling the scent of the roses planted throughout the park, trying to shake off the growing unease inside her. She had returned for reasons she couldn't even explain. Perhaps a part of her was tired of running away. It was then that she heard it. A soft, familiar melody cut through the silence between the sounds of nature. The first chords of a guitar echoed through the park, awakening something deep within her. Victoria paused instantly, her heart racing as if she had been transported to another time. That music, it was impossible. Her eyes scanned the environment until locating the source of the sound. On a wooden bench, under the shade of a robust tree, a man played the guitar masterfully. He was with his eyes closed, lost in the melody he played with an almost reverent care. His expression was serene, but there was something there, a subtle sadness printed in each note. And then, as Victoria approached, she noticed something that made her whole body freeze. She knew that song. It was their song. Every note, every pause, every chord, everything was exactly as she remembered. Victoria dared not breathe. She stepped forward slowly, as if fearing to break that fragile and impossible moment. The man kept his eyes closed, his fingers gliding along the guitar strings with the delicacy of someone holding a piece of their own soul. Unaware, Victoria began to hum softly. Her voice came out shaky at first, hesitant, but gradually found the right pitch, shaping itself to the melody naturally. And then it happened. The man opened his eyes, and when their gazes met, the world seemed to stop. For an instant, time lost its meaning. 30 years dissolved in the blink of an eye, and all that remained was that moment, that inexplicable connection neither of them could comprehend. His eyes widened, and a whisper escaped his lips before he could prevent it. Liam! The name, spoken with disbelief, laden with an indescribable weight, sent a shiver down her spine. The guitar fell silent. The park vanished. Only they existed. Victoria felt her legs weaken. The face of that man, though marked by time, still bore unmistakable traits. The same eyes, the same intense expression, the same look she had tried to forget, unsuccessfully, her entire life. "It can't be," she murmured, almost voicelessly. But it was. It was him, Liam, the man she had left without looking back. The past she had tried to bury was now staring back at her in flesh and blood. And by his gaze, she knew that the impact of this reunion was as overwhelming for him as it was for her. For a moment, neither of them knew what to say. The silence between them was laden with unspoken words, with memories suffocated by time. Until Liam broke the spell. He breathed deeply, as if trying to assure himself that this was real, and closed his eyes for a brief moment before releasing them again onto her. "I can't believe it's you." Victoria wanted to respond, but her voice failed her. There was so much to say, so much to ask, and at the same time, she didn't know where to start. Liam looked at her as if he were trying to fit together all the pieces of a puzzle he could never solve. His eyes had a different sparkle, a mix of surprise, emotion, and a silent pain only she recognized. And then, as if fate had decided to test their hearts one more time, Victoria noticed something in Liam that made her throat tighten. He was still wearing the ring she once gave him. The ring, worn by time, still adorned his finger as a reminder of something that had never been forgotten. She felt breathless, and in that instant she understood the weight of what she had left behind. The air between them seemed charged with electricity. Neither of them moved, as if a sudden gesture would be enough to break that fragile and unreal moment. Liam, still holding the guitar on his lap, barely blinked. His eyes roamed over Victoria's face, perhaps searching for traces of that young woman who had once been his world. And Victoria, she felt lost. She had spent over 30 years believing she would never see Liam again. And now, there he was, so real and so close that her heart hammered against her chest as if it wanted to break free from its control. She tried to speak, but the words died in her throat. Liam's gaze fell on his own finger, where the worn ring gleamed in the sunlight. He noticed what Victoria was observing and, in an automatic reflex, hid his hand, closing his fingers around the small ring. Victoria felt the impact like an invisible blow. He still wore it. All those years, Liam had never disposed of that memory. What did it mean? A gentle breeze blew through the trees, causing the leaves to sway and scattering petals on the ground. The park continued its calm routine, oblivious to the turmoil unfolding within them. Liam took a deep breath and finally broke the silence. "I dreamed of this moment so many times," he said, his voice hoarse, laden with conflicting emotions. "But in my dreams you returned to me before so much time had passed." The weight of those words made Victoria avert her gaze. He was right. She had left him without proper goodbyes, without explanations that made sense. She just turned her back and walked away, taking with her the heart she had promised never to abandon. "Liam, Her voice failed again, choked by an avalanche of feelings. He closed his eyes for a moment and let out a low, humorless laugh. "You still know how to disarm me?" he murmured, shaking his head. Victoria felt a tightness in her chest. Liam seemed different, yet at the same time he was exactly the same. His hair now had grey strands, his skin bore marks of time, but his gaze, that intense gaze, was still there, filled with a warmth that made her travel back in time. And then, unable to contain her need to know, she asked, "You kept playing?" Liam hesitated for a moment, then looked at the guitar in his lap and ran his hand over the worn wood top. "Music never abandoned me," he said with a light, melancholic smile. "Nor did you." Victoria's heart skipped a beat. She opened her mouth to say something, but at that moment a group of children ran across the nearby path, laughing and playing, bringing them back to reality. That was enough for Liam to compose himself. He adjusted the guitar and cleared his throat before asking, "What brought you back, Victoria?" The question caught her by surprise. What had brought her back? She wished she had a clear answer, but the truth was, she didn't know. After so many years living for work, an emptiness began to grow within her, until she found herself, without realizing it, catching a flight back to that city. "I needed to breathe," she finally replied, without looking at him. Liam watched her for a long moment before nodding. "I understand." His voice carried a subtext that Victoria couldn't decipher. She pressed her bag against her body, feeling restless. The weight of the past between them was suffocating. "I need to go," she said suddenly, without even planning those words. Liam raised his eyebrows, surprised. "Now?" Victoria nodded, even though she didn't want to. "Yes, I need some time to process all of this." Liam lowered his gaze for a moment, then smiled, but it was a sad smile. "I understand," he said again. Victoria took a step back, then another. Her body wanted to flee, but her soul pleaded to stay. "It was good to see you, Liam." He merely watched her, not responding immediately. When he finally spoke, his words struck her like a lightning bolt. "Tomorrow, at this same time, I will be here." Victoria froze. Liam leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees, and added with a half-smile, "In case you decide not to run away again." She felt her legs weaken. The challenge was set. Victoria swallowed hard, fighting against the avalanche of emotions, threatening to consume her completely, and then, without answering, she turned and walked away. But with each step she took, the melody of that song still echoed in her mind, and deep down, she knew she wouldn't be able to stay away for long. Victoria walked through the park without looking back, but she felt the weight of Liam's gaze fixed on her back. Her heart hammered strongly, as if it wanted to alert her that she was about to make a mistake by moving away. She moved forward, ignoring the urge to stop, to turn back, to sit next to him on that bench and ask everything she wanted to know. But not yet. She wasn't ready. Her steps quickened as she left the park and headed to the hotel where she was staying. Her body seemed to move automatically, but her mind revolved around a single thought: Liam. Time had been cruel. Not to him, not to her, but to what they had lost. 30 years, a whole lifetime. Upon arriving at the hotel, she entered her room and closed the door behind her. She leaned against the cold wood and let out a long sigh, running her hands over her face. She needed a moment to absorb everything. She walked to the balcony and looked at the city below. The streets were busy, people coming and going, oblivious to the emotional storm unfolding inside her. It was then that, inadvertently, her eyes fell on her left hand. Unlike Liam, she no longer wore the ring he had once given her. Long ago, she had stored that memory in a small box, bearing with it the past she was trying to forget. But had she really forgotten? Liam's words came back to her mind. "The music never abandoned me. Nor did you." What did he mean by that? Victoria closed her eyes and, as in an old movie, flashes of the past took over her mind. The summer they met. The afternoons he played guitar for her on her parents' porch. The promises made under the moonlight. And finally the day he left, without even giving her a decent goodbye. A pang of guilt pierced her chest. She knew she had hurt him. She knew that Liam would never understand her sudden departure. But at the time, she believed she was doing the right thing. Now she wasn't so sure. She opened her eyes and inhaled deeply. Suddenly, she felt an uncontrollable need to know more about him. What had he done over the years? Had he married? Did he have children? Or had he, like her, just survived the absence? That night, Victoria hardly slept. She tossed and turned, restless, while her mind was flooded with doubts and memories. And Deep down, a single question tormented her more than all the others. Was she still capable of loving him? The next morning, Victoria woke up early, even though she hadn't rested well. When she opened her eyes, the first thing that came to her mind was Liam and what he had said to her before they said goodbye. "Tomorrow, at this same hour, I will be here, if you decide not to run away again." She knew she had two options: ignore him and move on with her life, as she had before, or face him and confront everything that was left behind. And for the first time in years, Victoria realized she didn't want to run away anymore. She dressed calmly, simply tied her hair back, and left the hotel without even having breakfast. Her heart raced with every step she took toward the park. But this time it wasn't fear, it was anticipation. The cool morning breeze blew gently when she arrived at the place where everything had happened the day before. And then, there he was, sitting on the same bench, guitar in hand, fingers strumming unknown chords, his gaze lost somewhere on the horizon. For a moment, Victoria just observed him. Liam seemed so focused that he didn't notice her arrival. His face held a melancholic serenity, as if his soul were inhabiting another time. She felt her heart tighten. There were no more doubts. She needed to know. She needed to hear it from him. Victoria took a deep breath and, gathering all the courage she had left, stepped forward. "I didn't run away." Her voice cut through the silent air between them. Liam stopped playing at that instant. His fingers remained still on the guitar strings. Slowly, he lifted his gaze, and when his eyes met hers, something indescribable passed between them. It was as if time no longer mattered. He blinked a few times, as if needing to be sure she was really there. "You didn't run away," he repeated, and a subtle smile appeared at the corner of his lips. "That's a good start." Victoria felt a familiar warmth growing inside her. Not really knowing why, she sat down beside him on the bench, and for a brief moment they sat side by side in silence. The presence of one another was enough. It was Liam who broke the silence. "I've wondered many times if I would ever see you again." Victoria looked down. "Me too." Liam watched her for a moment, and then looked down at the guitar. "Do you want to hear something new?" Victoria raised her eyebrows, curious. "Did you compose something?" He nodded. "A few songs, but there's one in particular that I wrote for you." Her heart raced. Liam positioned his fingers over the strings and began to play. The melody was soft, enveloping, filled with emotion. It wasn't a song from the past. It was something new, something he had written in her absence. Victoria felt a knot in her throat. Each chord seemed to tell a story. Each note seemed to bring forth everything that had been lost. When the music ended, Liam looked into her eyes. "For years, this was the only way I found to keep you close." She blinked rapidly, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. "Liam," he smiled, but it was a sad smile. "I just want to know one thing, Victoria." She held her breath. "Did you come back to stay?" The silence that followed was overwhelming. Victoria didn't have that answer. Not yet. But for the first time in a long time, she felt she wanted to find out. The world around seemed to have shrunk to that moment. The wind blew softly, the leaves of the trees whispered to each other, and the melody of the recently finished song still vibrated in the air, as if refusing to completely disappear. Victoria felt a tightness in her chest. Liam's words echoed in her mind, insistent, demanding an answer she didn't have yet. "You came back to stay?" She didn't know. She hadn't planned any of this. And now she was there, confronted by a past she never overcame, by a man who never forgot her. Liam was looking at her patiently, but there was a palpable vulnerability in his eyes. He wasn't just asking a question, He was laying his heart before her, hoping to know if it was worth trying to rebuild it. Victoria looked away for a moment, taking a deep breath before answering. I don't know. The silence that followed was heavy. Liam lowered his gaze, nodding slightly, as if he had already expected that answer. "It's okay," he said, and his voice was calm, but it didn't hide the sting of disappointment. "At least it's honest." Victoria felt a lump in her throat. She wanted to say something, wanted to explain the whirlwind of emotions that took hold of her, but the words wouldn't come. Liam noticed. He smiled lightly and closed the guitar, resting it beside the bench. "How about a walk?" he suggested. "No past, no charges, just a stroll." Victoria blinked, surprised by the change of tone, but felt an immediate relief. "I would love that." And then, without another word about what had been left behind, they both stood up and started walking through the park. The stone path unfolded before them, flanked by flowering trees and wooden benches, occupied by distracted people. The sun was already high in the sky, warming the morning with a golden and soft light. Victoria and Liam walked side by side, their steps rhythmic, an almost natural closeness between them. "You never left?" Victoria asked after a few minutes, unable to contain her curiosity. Liam smiled, a smile filled with meaning. "I thought of leaving many times," he said, "but something always kept me here." She waited for him to continue. "First, it was the hope that you would come back," he confessed plainly. "Then, when I realized that wouldn't happen, music became my refuge. I started playing professionally, got involved with the city's artistic community, and before I knew it, I was already part of this place." Victoria absorbed those words with a weight in her heart. He waited for her, and when he gave up waiting, he still remained there. "Did you move on?" she asked, her voice coming out, almost in a whisper. Liam hesitated. "In a way." She frowned, turning to look at him. "What do you mean?" He let out a low, humorless laugh. "I had relationships, of course. Some amazing women came through my life, but none stayed." Victoria felt a shiver run through her body. "Why?" Liam stopped walking and looked directly at her. "Because I could never forget you, Victoria." She held her breath. As much as she suspected, hearing that directly from him hit her in a way she didn't expect. Liam looked away, running a hand through his hair. "I'm not saying this to pressure you, it's just the truth." Victoria nodded slowly, feeling her heart pounding hard in her chest. She opened her mouth to respond, but at that moment, a small group of musicians set up ahead in the park. The sound of a saxophone echoed in the air, followed by a guitar and a light drumming on a cajon. Liam smiled. "They're good," he commented. Victoria, still trying to recover from the previous conversation, just nodded. But then, without warning, Liam extended his hand to her. "Shall we dance?" She widened her eyes. "What?" he shrugged. "Just a dance." Victoria looked around, noticing that some people had already begun to move to the lively music. She hesitated. Liam didn't insist. He just kept his hand extended, offering but without imposing. And it was that simple gesture, that respect for her time, that made her make a decision. With a small sigh, Victoria placed her hand over his. Liam gently pulled her in, and in the next instant, their bodies were close, moving to the rhythm of the music. It was like going back in time. The way he led, the light movements, the spontaneous laughter, everything made her remember how they danced when they were young, the nights under the moonlight, the impromptu parties in the town square. She laughed as he twirled her to the side and then pulled her back, making her spin. "You haven't lost your touch," she exclaimed, a genuine smile on her face. "Neither have you," he replied, his eyes sparkling. The music followed its course, and Victoria allowed herself to just feel. Feel the warmth of the moment. Feel the unexpected joy. Feel Liam by her side, so alive, so present. When the song came to an end, they stopped, breathless but smiling. And then, for the first time in a long time, Victoria realized something alarmingly simple. She was happy, really happy. And maybe, just maybe, she had found a reason to stay. The laughter still lingered on Victoria's lips when the music ended. Her eyes sparkled, and for a moment she forgot everything, the time they had spent apart, the unanswered questions, the weight of past choices. All that remained was that feeling, so pure and unexpected, of genuine joy. Liam also seemed different. There was a shine in his eyes that Victoria recognized. He had always been this way, intense, present, living each moment as if it were unique. And there, in that instant, it was as if the years had never passed. But then, as if reality had realized it had given them a truce for too long, the magic unraveled. Victoria's phone vibrated inside her bag. The sound seemed to bring back everything she was trying to escape. She took a deep breath before picking it up. Hesitating for a moment before looking at the screen, a name appeared, accompanied by a photo of a middle-aged man dressed formally. Michael, her partner, her business companion, the man who, in a way, had been part of her life for so many years. Her chest tightened. It was as if the past and the present were in a silent duel, waiting to see which one she would choose. Liam noticed her hesitation. He didn't ask anything, just watched her closely, reading every micro-expression on her face. Victoria answered, "Hello." "Victoria, where are you? I tried to call you yesterday." Michael's voice was serious, objective as always. Victoria blinked, feeling suddenly out of place. "I'm dealing with some things. What happened? We need you here. The meeting with the investors has been moved up to the day after tomorrow. Can you catch a flight today?" Victoria looked at the ground. Catch a flight today. Leave. Everything seemed so abrupt, so sudden. She closed her eyes for a moment. Before, she would have said yes without hesitation. Before, her life revolved around this. Quick decisions, immediate answers, urgent commitments. But now, her gaze slid to Liam. He remained there, patient, not showing any pressure. But in his eyes was an unasked question. Victoria took a deep breath. "Michael, I can't go back today." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. "What do you mean, you can't?" She felt her heart race. She had never said that before. She had never put anything above her career, but now she couldn't ignore what she felt. "I need a few more days," she said, her voice firmer than she expected. "Victoria, we're talking about millions at stake. The board expects your presence." She swallowed hard. Yes, she knew that. She knew the expectations of her. She knew everything. But for the first time in a long time, she wanted to ignore them. "I understand, Michael, but I trust you to handle this until I return." Another silence, then a sigh. "That's not you, Victoria." She smiled faintly. "Maybe I'm rediscovering who I am." Michael didn't push further. "All right, let me know when you decide to come back." The call dropped. Victoria let out a long sigh, closing her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, Liam was still watching her, a discreet smile on his lips. "That seemed important," he commented. She laughed lightly, shaking her head. It was. So, she put her phone away in her bag and looked at him. "I stayed." Liam tilted his head, as if savoring those words. "That's a good start." Victoria smiled, feeling an inexplicable warmth envelop her. They spent the afternoon together. They sat by the park lake, throwing breadcrumbs to the ducks, as they had done in their youth. They talked about the years they had been apart, about the paths they had taken. Liam shared about his career as a local musician, about the performances he gave in small bars and theaters. Victoria shared about her travels, about the empire she had built. But there was one thing that both avoided speaking directly about. What would happen now? The question hung between them, but no one dared to bring it up. It was already late afternoon when Liam stood up and extended his hand to her. "Come with me?" Victoria raised an eyebrow. "Where to?" "Do you trust me?" She hesitated for a second, but then, not quite knowing why, she took his hand. "Yes." Liam smiled, and without saying anything more, he guided her through the park, exiting through the main entrance. They walked down a few streets until they stopped in front of a small corner bar. It was a simple place, but cozy, with yellow lights and rustic wooden tables. A small stage occupied one corner, and an old piano rested beside it. Victoria looked at Liam, curious. "What are we doing here?" He just smiled. "Will you join me?" And then, without waiting for an answer, he walked to the stage. Victoria sat at a nearby table, watching as he grabbed a guitar and exchanged a few words with the bar owner. When Liam finally sat on the stool in the center of the stage and adjusted the microphone, his eyes met hers. Victoria felt her stomach churn, and then he began to play. This time it wasn't a new song, it was that song, theirs. The air in the bar seemed to grow thicker. The first chords echoed in the room, bringing with them memories that Victoria had tried to bury for so long. She swallowed hard, feeling the emotions take over. Liam sang as if he were telling their story to the world, and Victoria felt every word pierce her chest like an arrow. In that moment, she realized a truth that scared her. She still loved him, and perhaps she never had stopped. Liam's voice softly echoed through the bar, laden with an emotion that made the air vibrate around. The melody was the same as so many years ago, but now it seemed different, deeper, more intense, as if time had added new layers of feeling to each note. Victoria couldn't look away. With each verse, she felt transported back to a time when everything seemed simpler, purer, when dreams were young, when they believed nothing would separate them. And in that moment, something inside her broke. The past was not a distant place. It was there, alive, pulsating before her. The music ended, and the silence that followed was heavy. Not because the people in the bar didn't like it. On the contrary, some even clapped softly, impressed by the sincerity of the performance. But for Victoria, the silence meant something else. It was the exact space between what she felt and what she needed to do about it. Liam put the guitar aside, thanked the small audience, and stepped down from the stage. His eyes found hers immediately. He didn't smile, didn't say anything. He just walked over to her, sitting down in front of her as if he was waiting for her reaction. Victoria took a deep breath. "This song has always been yours." Her chest tightened. "You never stopped playing." Liam entwined his fingers on the table, his gaze heavy with feelings. "And you never stopped running." She blinked, feeling the impact of those words. The waiter appeared beside them, bringing 2 glasses of wine that Liam had ordered before going on stage. He poured the drink without interrupting the moment unfolding between the two. Victoria held the glass, but didn't drink. "Do you hate me?" The question came out before she could stop it. Liam watched her for a long moment before answering. "I tried." Victoria's heart skipped a beat. He swirled the wine in his glass, pensive. "I tried to hate you for the time I waited without an answer, for the letters that were never answered, for the way you simply vanished from my life without explanations." She felt a chill run down her spine. Liam raised his eyes to her. "But I never could." Victoria tightened her fingers around the glass, feeling a lump form in her throat. "I was young. I thought I was doing the right thing." "Right for whom?" Liam retorted, not angrily, just wanting to understand. Victoria blinked a few times, trying to hold back the wave of emotion threatening to overflow. For my family, for the future they planned for me. And for you? She didn't answer immediately. The silence was the most honest response she could give. Liam let out a sigh. I would have gone with you, Victoria, if you had asked me. A silent tear rolled down her face. She knew that, had always known, and maybe that was the heaviest burden she carried. I was afraid, she confessed, her voice almost a whisper. Afraid that if I took you with me, things wouldn't work out. Afraid that one day I would regret it and end up blaming you for it. Liam nodded slowly, absorbing her words. And now? Victoria blinked, confused. What? He leaned slightly forward, her eyes locked onto his. Now that you have everything you wanted, that you built your career, conquered your place in the world, do you still feel like you made the right decision? Time stopped. Victoria felt the weight of that question fall on her like an avalanche. She had everything: money, status, professional respect. But then why did she feel she had lost so much? She looked away. I don't know. Liam nodded, as if he had already expected that answer. The wine remained untouched in her glass. The bar around them continued its usual rhythm. People laughed, talked, toasted, but between them time seemed suspended, as if they were stuck in that moment, at a silent crossroads. Liam leaned back in his chair, running his hand through his hair. Then maybe it's time to find out. Victoria looked up at him. How? He smiled lightly. Stay. She felt a shiver run down her spine. Liam, you don't have to make a decision now, but give yourself the chance to live, without plans for a while, without meetings, without deadlines, without pressure. He extended his hand to her over the table. Just stay. Victoria's heart beat so loudly that she thought she could hear it. Everything inside her screamed that this was the riskiest choice she could make. But for the first time in many years, she didn't want to think about what was right or wrong. She just wanted to feel, and then, slowly, she reached out her hand and lay it on his. I stay. Liam smiled, and in that moment, something inside Victoria was set free. The following days passed like a breeze, filled with sensations that Victoria no longer knew she was capable of feeling. For the first time in a long while, she was not living by the clock, not rushing to meet appointments, not needing to make decisions driven by deadlines and numbers. She simply existed, and Liam was by her side. They began to meet every day. In the morning, they had coffee together at a charming cafe in the city centre, where Victoria discovered that Liam was practically a regular customer. He greeted the staff by name, knew everyone's orders, and always had a kind comment for anyone who crossed his path. In the afternoon, they walked in the park, reliving memories and creating new ones. Liam always brought his guitar, sometimes playing just for her, whispering verses that seemed written exclusively for the two of them. And at night, Victoria allowed herself to be led. They dined under the starry sky in small local restaurants, tasting wines that paired with laughter and glances loaded with meaning. At times, Liam would intertwine his fingers with hers, and she wouldn't pull away. When he pulled her to dance to the sound of some music playing in the background, she allowed herself to close her eyes and simply feel. She was surrendering, and that terrified her. On one of those nights, Liam took her to a small hidden terrace, a place where, according to him, it was possible to see the whole city. The view was breathtaking. The lights of the lampposts and buildings shone like stars, reflecting in the river that cut through the landscape. The wind was fresh but cozy. Victoria hugged her own body, contemplating the city below. I forgot how beautiful this place was, she murmured. Liam, who was beside her, smiled. Or maybe you forgot to look calmly." She turned her face to him, finding a gaze full of affection and something more, something that made her feel vulnerable. "Liam," she began but stopped, not knowing exactly what she wanted to say. He watched her for a moment, then gently took her hands. "What is it?" Victoria hesitated. She wanted to tell the truth. She wanted to say that she was scared, that what she felt for him was still strong, overwhelming, and that the idea of allowing herself to experience that again left her feeling unsteady. But at the same time, she didn't want to ruin that moment. So instead of responding with words, she squeezed his hands and smiled. Liam gently pulled her closer. "I waited a long time for this," he confessed in an almost whispered tone. Victoria's heart raced. "For what?" He looked into her eyes a few centimeters away. "To kiss you again." She held her breath, and then, without another word, he shortened the distance between them. The first touch of their lips was hesitant, almost as if they both needed to ensure that it was real. But in the next moment, the barrier that separated them collapsed. The kiss was intense, loaded with years of longing and a love that never ceased to exist. Victoria felt Liam's fingers touch her face, sliding to her neck, pulling her closer. She in turn held onto his shoulders, feeling safe, feeling complete. The world around them faded away, only they existed. When they broke apart, both were breathless. Liam smiled, resting his forehead against hers. "That was even better than I remembered." Victoria laughed softly, feeling her face warm. "I think we need to test it more times to be sure." He raised an eyebrow, teasing. "I think I agree." And before either of them could say anything else, he kissed her again. This time, Victoria had no doubts. She was completely lost in that love, and perhaps she was willing to be found. The kiss left a mark on Victoria's skin, like a gentle fire, one that warms but does not burn, yet is intense enough to never be forgotten. When they finally pulled away, she felt her heart racing, her body light, and a sensation she hadn't experienced in a long time. Genuine happiness. Liam watched her with a half smile, as if trying to memorize every detail of that moment. "What happened?" she asked, adjusting a strand of hair that the wind insisted on bringing to her face. He shook his head slowly, his eyes shining. "I'm just trying to convince myself this isn't a dream." Victoria chuckled softly, but felt a tightness in her chest. "Me too." She looked at the illuminated city in front of her, trying to calm the confusion of feelings inside her. She felt light, as if she could float, but at the same time, a restlessness began to form in the back of her mind. What if she was rushing? What if all of this was just a fleeting daydream, a lapse in reality that would soon readjust? Liam seemed to notice her hesitation. He took her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. "What are you thinking about?" Victoria let out a sigh, looking at him. "About all of this. About us." He squeezed her hand gently. "What about us?" "Liam." She hesitated, searching for the right words. "I don't know if I'm ready." His eyes studied her for a moment before he nodded slowly. "I understand." Victoria turned her gaze away, feeling overwhelmed by the weight of her own indecision. "I feel like I'm diving headfirst into something I don't know how it will end." Liam let out a soft laugh without irony, just understanding. "Love never comes with guarantees, Victoria." She bit her lip, still staring at the horizon. "I spent so much time building my life, planning each step, and now here I am, completely directionless. And does that scare you?" She closed her eyes for a moment. "Very much." Liam fell silent for a while. Then he squeezed her hand more firmly. "Fear doesn't have to be an enemy. Sometimes it's just trying to show us what really matters." Victoria turned her face to him, finding those eyes that always made her feel safe. What really matters? He smiled slightly. You. Her heart skipped a beat in her chest. She had no answer to that, but she knew she felt the same. That night, Victoria returned to the hotel with a tight chest. There was something growing inside her, something bigger than any doubt, than any fear. She was falling in love again. Or perhaps she had never stopped loving Liam. She lay down on the bed, but sleep did not come. She turned from side to side, staring at the dark ceiling, feeling completely lost in her own feelings. It was then that her cell phone vibrated. She sat up immediately, grabbing the device from the bedside table. It was a message from Michael. "Victoria, I hope you're well. We need to talk. Call me as soon as you can." She frowned. Something in those words unsettled her. Michael never spoke that way, so directly yet at the same time vague. A bad feeling coursed through her body. She hesitated for a moment, but then decided to call. Michael answered on the second ring. "Victoria, what happened?" On the other end of the line, there was a tense silence. Then Michael sighed. "I know where you are." She froze. "What do you mean? Did you really think no one would find out? That no one would notice your prolonged absence?" His tone was low but laden with something that Victoria couldn't identify right away. She stood up from the bed, pacing the room. "Michael, if you have something to say, just say it." Another silence. Then he let it slip. "Your absence caught attention. Some of the investors started questioning your absence. And now, there are rumors." Victoria frowned. "What kind of rumors?" "That you are considering permanently stepping back, that you might be rethinking your role in the company." She widened her eyes. "That's absurd." "Is it?" Michael shot back. "Can you say for sure that you're not thinking about it?" Victoria opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Michael let out a dry laugh. "I figured as much." She ran a hand over her face, feeling her heart race. "It's not that simple, Michael." "No, it's not. But the question is, do you want it to be?" Victoria felt suffocated. She had no answer to that. But the truth was that for the first time, the idea of not going back to that life didn't seem so absurd. And that terrified her. Victoria stood still in the middle of the room, gripping the phone tightly, as if that could prevent her from losing control of her life, the rumors, the possibility of a definitive separation, Michael's suspicion. Until a few days ago, this idea would have been unthinkable. Her career had always been her priority, her reason for existence. But now everything seemed different. As if for the first time she was considering another possibility, an alternative that did not involve contracts, meetings, and endless deadlines. On the other end of the line, Michael was waiting. "Are you still there?" he asked, his tone softer now. Victoria closed her eyes for a moment and let out a sigh. "Yes, I am. I'm not demanding anything from you, Victoria, but you need to be honest with yourself." She ran her hand over her face, feeling exhausted. "I know." There was a pause. "And Liam?" His name hit her like a shock. Victoria pressed her lips together, walking to the window. The city sparkled under the night, and somewhere out there, Liam was probably thinking about her. "What about him?" Michael did not hesitate. "Is he the reason you are considering staying?" Victoria felt her heart race. She wanted to deny it. She wanted to say that her absence from the company was just a moment of rest, that she would soon return to her position and pick up everything where she left off, but that would be a lie. Liam was indeed part of it, but he was not the only one. The truth was that for the first time she felt free, and maybe that was the problem. She never knew how to deal with freedom. "I need to think, Michael," she finally said. There was a sigh on the other end of the line. "That's fine. Just don't take too long. You know how the market works." "I know. If you need anything, let me know." "Thank you." Call dropped, and Victoria stood there staring at her own reflection in the glass. She had never been so divided. The next morning, Liam showed up at the hotel unannounced. Victoria had been awake for hours, trying to organize her own thoughts, when someone knocked on the door. She opened it and found those familiar eyes watching her with a warm smile. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning," she replied, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "You said you needed a reason not to run away." He lifted a small paper package. "I brought coffee." Victoria couldn't help but smile. "You are impossible." Liam shrugged, playful. "I prefer irresistible." She laughed, shaking her head, and let him in. The two sat at the small dining table in the room, and Victoria watched as he poured coffee into her cup, as if he had been part of that routine for years. "You seem thoughtful today," he remarked, watching her. Victoria twirled the cup between her fingers, not looking at him. "Just a lot on my mind. What did Michael want yesterday?" She looked up, surprised. "How do you know I spoke to him?" Liam smiled, leaning back in the chair. "I know that look. You looked like that when you told me you were leaving. And 30 years ago," Victoria felt a chill run down her spine. I'm trying to understand what I want now." Liam said nothing for a moment. He just watched her, as if giving her the space she needed. Then finally he asked, "And what do you want?" She took a deep breath. "That's the question I'm trying to answer." He nodded slowly. "I know I can't ask you to give up everything you've built." Victoria looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. "But I also know you can't spend your whole life running away from what truly makes you happy." She felt something break inside her. Liam took her hand over the table, intertwining his fingers with hers. "I don't want to hold you back, Victoria. I never did. But I also don't want to be just a beautiful memory in your life." Her chest tightened. "I don't want you to be just a memory." He smiled softly. "So what are we waiting for?" Victoria averted her gaze, feeling fear mixed with hope inside her. She wanted to believe that this could work out, but there were still so many uncertainties. Liam squeezed her hand. "Victoria, we've already lost too much time. If there's one thing I've learned over the years, it's that you can't live waiting for the perfect moment." She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the warmth of his hand on hers. And then, when she opened them, she found in his eyes all the answers she needed. "So help me figure out how to make this work." Liam smiled. "I've been doing that since the moment you returned." And for the first time, Victoria felt that maybe, just maybe, she was finally on the right path. The following days passed like a blur, a mix of intense moments and silent internal battles. Victoria felt she was in a point of transition, as if she were balanced on the edge of a cliff, trying to decide whether to jump or step back. Liam was her anchor. With him, everything seemed simpler. Mornings were filled with carefree conversations. Walks in the park became routine, and long dinners, accompanied by wine and meaningful glances, made Victoria forget everything that lay outside that small bubble of happiness. But the real world wouldn't wait for her forever. She knew that, and it was precisely that certainty that made her feel a tightening in her chest that afternoon, when she received a direct and formal email from Michael. "Victoria, the Investors' Council wants an answer. Will you return, or should I formalize your departure?" She stared at those cold words on her cell phone screen, feeling a lump in her throat. There was no more time for indecision. The moment to choose had arrived. Liam noticed the change in her as soon as they met that night. "You're tense," he commented as they walked side by side through the quiet streets of the city. Victoria sighed. "I received an email today." He didn't need to ask what it was about. He stopped walking, gently pulling her by the hand to make her do the same. What are you going to do? She looked at the ground, feeling suffocated. I don't. No. Liam was silent for a moment, then gently touched her face, forcing her to look at him. You know, you're just afraid to admit it. Victoria's chest tightened. She knew that deep down, she didn't want to go back, that the life she had built, however solid it was, had never made her feel as alive as she did now. But giving up everything was scary. What if it was a mistake? Liam seemed to read her thoughts. If you're waiting for a guarantee, I can't give you one. Victoria closed her eyes for a moment. I'm scared. So am I. She opened her eyes, surprised. Liam smiled softly. Love always brings risks, Victoria, but if there's one thing I've learned, it's that it's not worth living if we're not willing to risk for what truly matters. She felt a lump in her throat. What if it goes wrong? What if it goes right? He countered, his voice heavy with hope. Victoria swallowed hard. Her heart had already made its choice. Now all that remained was for her to have the courage to accept it. The next morning, she woke up before the sun rose. She sat up in bed, hugging her knees, feeling the weight of the moment on her shoulders. She picked up her cell phone, opened Michael's email, and stared at the message. Her mind said one thing, her heart screamed another. She took a deep breath and began to type. Michael, I've made my decision. Her finger hovered over the send button. It was now. She closed her eyes and, without further hesitation, pressed the screen. The message was sent, and in that moment, she knew there was no turning back. The email was sent. For a moment, Victoria felt the world stop. Her heart was racing and her hands were trembling slightly as she placed the cell phone. On the nightstand, a strange sensation overtook her, a mix of relief and fear. She had made her choice, but she still did not know the consequences of that choice. Later that morning, Victoria encountered Liam in the park. He was sitting on their usual bench, the guitar resting beside him. When he saw her approaching, he smiled, but soon noticed the tension on her face. You made a decision. It wasn't a question. Victoria took a deep breath and nodded. Yes. Liam observed her for a moment, waiting for her to continue. I sent a response to Michael, she said, her voice firm but low. I told him I wouldn't go back. The silence that followed was crushing. Then slowly, a smile appeared. On Liam's face, Are you serious? She nodded again, and it was only then that she realized she had been holding her breath. Liam chuckled softly, shaking his head. My God, Victoria. Without warning, he stood up and pulled her into a tight embrace. She felt the warmth of his body, the strength of his arms around her, and something inside her finally calmed down. You have no idea how much this means to me, he whispered against her hair. Victoria closed her eyes, allowing herself to savor that moment. I just hope it's the right choice. Liam pulled away slightly and held her face in his hands, looking into her eyes. The right choice is the one that makes your heart beat faster. She smiled, feeling the emotions swell within her. For a moment, everything seemed perfect. But as fate likes to toy with human hearts, perfection never lasts forever. That afternoon, as they walked through the city, a tall, well-dressed man appeared in the middle of the sidewalk, coming toward them. Victoria felt her body freeze. It was Michael. Liam noticed the instant change in her posture and frowned before turning to see what was happening. Michael stopped a few steps away, his gaze fixed on Victoria. So it's true. Victoria swallowed hard. Michael, what are you doing here? Trying to understand why the most determined woman I know would throw everything away for a romance. And from the past, his voice was not aggressive, but there was something sharp in his tone. Liam crossed his arms, watching the scene silently. I'm not throwing anything away. Victoria said, trying to keep calm. Michael let out a short laugh. No? Then tell me, Victoria, what exactly do you intend to do now? Live here, live on love and nostalgia? Because if you think you can just abandon everything and be happy, maybe you're fooling yourself. His words hit her like a punch in the stomach. She opened her mouth to respond, but something inside her hesitated. It was at that moment that Liam intervened. With all due respect, Michael, that choice is not yours to make. Michael's gaze turned to him, assessing him for a moment. You don't understand, do you? He said, crossing his arms. Victoria has always been driven by challenge, by ambition. She built an empire with her own hands. Do you really think she can just switch that part of her off like a light switch? Liam narrowed his eyes. And do you really think success is synonymous with happiness? The two glared at each other in a tense moment. Victoria felt her heart racing. I didn't come here to argue with you, Victoria, Michael sighed. I came because deep down, I still believe you're going to realize that you're making a mistake. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to organize her thoughts. Then finally she said, I don't know what the future holds, Michael, but I know I can no longer live based only on what others expect of me. He frowned, as if he still couldn't accept it. So that's it? That's it. Michael ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you. Without waiting for a response, he turned and started walking down the street, disappearing among the crowd. Victoria let out a long sigh, feeling exhausted. Liam gently touched her arm. Are you okay? She forced a smile but felt a whirlwind. Inside her, I don't know. Do you want to talk? She hesitated for a moment, then shook her head. Not now. Liam nodded, understanding. That's okay. They stood there, frozen, as the world around them continued its normal flow. Then Victoria took a deep breath and held Liam's hand. Shall we take a walk? He smiled. Always. Days passed, and Victoria began to adapt to her new life. It was not easy. There were moments of doubt, fear, and questioning. But in each of them, Liam stood by her side. She began to write, something she hadn't done in years. She rediscovered simple pleasures like cooking at leisure, watching the sunset without looking at the clock. And with each passing day, the certainty within her grew. She had made the right choice. One night as they walked through the square where they had reunited, Liam took her hands and said, I have something to show you. Curious, she followed him to a small house with a flowered garden. What is this? Liam smiled. Our house, if you want it. Victoria's heart raced. She looked at the house, then back at him, and then she realized something. She no longer felt fear. She smiled and nodded. Yes. Liam pulled her in for a deep kiss, and at that moment Victoria knew the love she had left behind had waited for her. And now, it was exactly where it always should have been. If this story touched your heart and made you reflect on your own choices, leave a comment below. We want to know, do you believe that it is never too late to start over?